Hello.
Hey, Anatoly, how's it going?
Hello, Farhan. I'm fine. Thank you.
Good to
How are
see you
you?
again. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Uh-huh, fantastic. How's the weather down there?
Oh, today is the first day when snow fall, uh, fa fall,
When snow fell, right?
felt. Yes, yes,
Uh-huh,
yes. That's right.
yeah. So that's great. So it's now it's a new day for people in Moscow. I think people are going to be excited about the winter, right?
Yes, yes. Winter is coming.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. There's a lot going on here. Also, people in the United States are actually preparing for a big storm that's coming later this week. This is a holiday week for people in the United States. So there are a lot of people who are preparing to travel, either go home to see their family, or everybody is coming to their home. Uh, and travel delays are causing major problems. I think there will be a large snowstorm tomorrow. Uh, Today is Wednesday. Tomorrow is kind of the day of Thanksgiving. So tomorrow is the main day of, I guess, eating food and being with family. And there are reports that there's going to be a lot of snow in the eastern part of the country. So New York, Washington, D.C. is going to have rain, but the northeast of the country is going to see a lot of snow. So people are not sure what they're going to do yet.
Yes, yes. I know that tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Exactly. So it's a big holiday time. It's actually probably the most busy holiday season of the entire year, you know.
Mm.
And people are, people work um, pretty pretty hard to, wait for this holiday. They wait the entire year. They save up a lot of money when they are traveling, and it's a shame that so many people will probably be stuck on a flight or stuck in an airport, tomorrow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I see.
Do you guys have any holidays like that, Anatoly? Maybe in Russia when everybody travels and sees each other?
Usually, I think the most common holiday for meeting it is New Year.
New Year's.
Yes, New Year. And for me also, I live in Moscow, but my parents and parents of my wife lives in city Saratov. It is on the river Volga, and in fact, parents of my wife lives near near Saratov in the
Uh-huh.
small city. And
Uh-huh.
during that holiday, it was a very long holiday, but now it became a more shorter holiday because our authority changed the number of days off for this holiday. But it is also a long holiday. Uh, it started from the 1st January to the 8th January, 8 days. It is also
Oops, sorry, there's a
very
fly
fine.
here.
Yes.
No, that's awesome. So it's 1 week of celebration, and people are, I think, very excited to be with their families. Do they travel to maybe? So I guess the younger people go to the older people's homes, right? So people visit their parents. So everybody comes to the grandparents' house or to the parents' house.
Yes, yes, and we visit our parents with our children, and it is a possibility once in a year, one time in a year, to meet together, and
Hmm.
other our relatives also came with their children, and it is one way for children to keep in touch, to keep how can we say it, to stay
To stay connected.
to stay connected. Yes, yes, that's right.
Absolutely. To stay connected with their parents, with their grandparents, with their cousins and relatives.
Yes, yes.
Everything like that, yeah. And also, Anatoly, one thing that you mentioned that I wanted to just bring up, you mentioned the parents of my wife, right? That it's completely fine to say that in English. It's a little bit better to say my wife's parents, right? So you can say that. And even better, actually, even better, if you are talking about your wife's parents, in English we actually call that, you can say my in-laws. My in-laws.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and for example, if your wife wants to talk about your parents, she can say my in-laws.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it works. It works well in that regard. But yeah, besides that, that's awesome, Anatoly. So maybe another month and 1 week, about 1 month from now, right? Everybody will be preparing to celebrate the New Year in Russia.
Yes, yes, and also we put it is artificial trees of pines.
Artificial pine trees, yeah.
Yes, pine trees. Yes,
Uh-huh.
we put it in our houses, and it is also traditional. And we decorate it using some stuff like colorful balls and sweets. Sometimes it is also add atmosphere of this holiday.
Yeah.
Of this day. Yes.
It sounds like such a fun time, right, Anatoly? I mean, people have a lot of fun and people enjoy food. What are some special foods that you guys make? Just maybe one example of a food that's very famous during the New Year.
Salad. We call it salad Olivier, but maybe the title of this salad was from French language, but I think for many years it changed completely, and it is one of traditional salad. We put together salam, for example, bean, cabbage, and eggs, boiled eggs, etc. And add mayonnaise or something like this. And for drink, it is also a usual drink, champagne, exactly in the time when New Year will come. It is also traditional action when everybody say cheer, and we think about our wishes for New Year, and it will come true if we don't disclose this wish with anybody, with somebody. I mean, you need to keep this secret. What is your wish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each family makes a secret dish, and maybe sometimes what we have here is we have we have a secret family recipe. People say that, for example, the grandmother teaches her daughter, the daughter teaches her daughter, and it's passed down the family, but it's never shared with anybody.
Yes, but maybe I said about wishes.
Yeah, wishes, uh-huh.
Wishes, yes,
Oh, the
wishes.
wishes itself, the wishes themselves are secret.
Yes, yes. The
Uh-huh.
wishes is secret, not
Uh-huh.
recipes.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, no, sometimes when we see, even in the United States, for example, I think they say that if you are blowing out the candles, you have a birthday cake, and you are blowing out the candles, that your wish needs to be a secret. You don't share your wish because
Mhm.
if you share your wish, then your wish will not come true. You know,
Yes,
so it's
yes.
the same idea.
Yes, yes, the same idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Anatoly, let's get started then. Let's take a look at today's lesson. And I believe very much, Anatoly, that you are you're an advanced student. You know, so this lesson may be something that you already understand. We're going to talk about the imperative tense, and when we use the imperative, we are focusing on giving commands to people, right? And really, from a grammatical standpoint, it is probably the easiest tense to create because there's no conjugation, there's no formula, there's no reorganizing, there's no construction involved in this in the imperative, right? The imperative is simply the base form of the verb, right? So for the verb, let's say you want to make something, right? Or you want to tell somebody to make something, right? See you later. If you want to tell somebody to make something, you can just say make, right? Uh, make me a dress, you know, make me a dress. The understanding is that when you tell somebody something in the imperative, that it's going to be using that the subject is you, right? So that's what we assume. You make me a dress, but we don't actually say the you. The you is understood from the general idea, right? So you make me a dress or make me a dress, right? Uh,
Mhm.
we don't say the you actually, so make me a dress is what we would say, but you is understood. And then, you know, the imperative tense honestly is not used when we are talking about politeness, right? If we want to be polite to somebody, then we would not use the imperative. We would use maybe a polite question, or we would make some kind of a scenario involving, you know, we would ask, for example, could you please, or, you know, can you please, or please make me a dress, right? Whatever the case might be, right? But the imperative does not use any of that. It's not polite, right?
Mhm.
So, what are some examples of imperatives, Anatoly, that you use around the house, maybe with your children, or maybe when you're talking to your friends? What are some imperative commands that you use?
Hmm. For example, give me this book.
Give me this book. Absolutely, absolutely. What about in the kitchen? Sometimes we see in the kitchen people are making food, so there's always commands that we use. What about in the kitchen?
Hmm. In the kitchen. Uh, don't touch bread uh, by dirty hands, for
Yeah,
example.
fantastic. Don't touch the bread with your dirty hands.
With your
Yeah,
dirty
don't touch
hands.
the bread with your dirty hands, right? So that's it's and then also in the case of, let's see, don't touch the bread with your dirty hands. I'm just write this down. Also in the case of, let's say you are driving with somebody, right? So another example in which we see a lot of commands being given, you know, let's say you are teaching somebody how to drive, Tali, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your son or daughter, I don't know if they are old enough, maybe not, but
Mm-hmm.
imagine in the future you are teaching them to drive. What could you say?
Mm. Look in front of you. You see a red color. Stop.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Fantastic. Look in front of you. You see the red light or the red color,
Red
right?
light.
You
Yes,
see the
red
red
light.
light?
Mm-hmm.
So stop, right? Also, we say in English many times when, for example, when my father taught me how to drive, you know, keep your eyes on the road,
Mm-hmm.
right? Keep your eyes on the road. So he didn't tell me in English because I don't speak English with my parents, but you know that was the idea, right? Keep your
Mm-hmm.
eyes on the
Yeah.
road, right?
Yes.
So something to focus on. You know, what about in a school? What if let's imagine you're the teacher? What could you tell the students?
Don't uh, keep calm. Don't speak.
Don't speak.
Keep calm.
Keep calm. Yeah, don't speak. Keep calm, right? And when
Stop
could
talking. Stop talking. Maybe I
exactly?
remember this. Stop talking.
Yeah, right. And when would you use these in a school setting? What's a proper time to say something like this to a child, maybe?
When somebody speak during the class.
Yeah, and they're just making noise, right? They're making noise.
Mm-hmm.
They're not helping the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. It's I don't remember being in trouble too much as a child, but I remember when I was misbehaving, I was kind of joking around in class, causing problems for the teacher. My teacher told me, "Go stand in the corner."
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Yes,
I had
yes.
to stand in the corner, and I think I was maybe 6 years old. I was so embarrassed as after that happened. You know,
Mhm.
I was so I wasn't crying, but I was very sad that everybody was watching me in the corner and they were saying, yeah. Anyway, so exactly, Anatoly. I think you get the idea perfectly, right? When do we use imperatives? We use them when we want to give these direct orders, right? We can also use them when we are talking about a simple direction that, for example, you can publicize, that you can put on a door, right? So, or on a street sign. So in the example that we had for driving, right, you can say when we see stop signs, the sign says stop, you know.
Yes.
So that's a direct command, right? If you go to a building, right, so what do we see on the doors sometimes? Just a one-word command. What do we
Mm.
see?
Um, Maybe don't go, don't pass.
Don't pass,
Uh,
yeah, that could be it. But we could
mm.
also see something as basic as just push or pull, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you push the door to open it, or you can pull the door to open it, right?
Mm.
Many times we see those on the doors of buildings, bigger buildings, things like that. Um, also, we also use imperatives when we are inviting people to our home or inviting people to a location. So let's say I come to your home in Anatoly. How could you welcome me with an imperative?
Come in.
Yeah, come in. Or what's another one that we can say when somebody is sitting down and you give them food, for example?
Uh, Help yourself.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Come in, and then when they're sitting down, help yourself. You can also say, make yourself at home.
Mm.
Right? Make
Mm-hmm.
yourself at home. My home is your home, so make
Mm-hmm.
yourself at home.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are very, very polite, so they will use a lot of polite expressions when somebody is at their house. But otherwise, it makes sense to just be formal or just be informal. It depends on who's coming, right? Uh, it could be your friend, it could be somebody else. So in any case, and then last but not least, Anatoly, we use the imperative when we want to make the negative, right? We can add the do not in front, right? So do not speak or don't speak,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, don't smoke, right? Many
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of things, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's the overall view of imperatives, Anatoly. Do you have any questions about any of that?
Yes, for example, we set as an imperative phrase, make me a dress. And if I, for example, could add for this phrase, make me a dress, please,
Mm-hmm.
it also is imperative
Yeah, it is imperative. It is
expression or
imperative.
not.
Yeah, it is imperative, but it reduces
Hmm.
the tone of the phrase from something that is more. It reduces the tone from being more direct to a little bit more polite,
Hmm.
right? So you can use please. You can use please when you use imperatives, but
Hmm.
imperative for me, when I hear imperative, I want something to happen, and I don't want to be polite necessarily.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that's the difference, I guess. But yeah, absolutely, if you use please or you say something like that, then it's absolutely still an imperative phrase. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's just
Okay.
It's a more polite imperative phrase.
hmm I remember also expression "be my guest," but it was ironical expression, not exactly inviting to home.
Yeah, you're right, Anatoly. Be my guest.
In context which with
No, no, go ahead,
yes.
Anatoly. Go ahead. Go ahead. When did you hear "Be
Okay,
my
thank you.
guest"?
Heard this expression in the play about somebody who answered very sarcastically, and he explained in sarcastic way that he didn't like something about his counterpart said before,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Ah, you said so. Be my guest. I follow your advice, but you perhaps will be not glad to see follow actions like this."
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's a great way. We use sarcastic phrases like "be my guest" um, to say to somebody, you are, I'm telling you something, you're not listening to me, right? If you want to not follow my advice, be my guest, right? If you
Mhm.
refuse to follow my advice, be my guest. You can do whatever you want, be my guest, do whatever you want. I'm telling you something that I know from my experience will help you, but you don't want to accept it, be my guest, whatever. I don't care,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yes.
that's that's a great example. That's a great example, Anatoly. Fantastic. Um, so yeah, I think you have a great mastery of this, Anatoly. But I mean, when we think about it in other contexts or from what we looked at, did you have any other questions about how we use them?
No questions. I found this part I
Yeah.
put in the chat. It was a play about Frankenstein, but it was humoristic play,
Hmm.
Frankenstein House, and you can see uh, that leader of mob said, "You are the monster," and Frankenstein answered in sarcastic way.
Yeah. Oh, great. Now it's a racial thing. You know what? You guys are a bunch of fascists. Hey, seriously, dude, get that fire away from me. And then, yeah, at the end he says, be my guest. Yeah, absolutely. Do whatever you want. Um, in British English, they have a phrase that is similar, but I'm not 100% sure if the meaning is the same. It's called, I don't know if anybody uses this, but people say, my foot, like over my dead body. You might have also heard that phrase over my dead body when people are
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, you want this to happen? Impossible. Never will. It'll never happen." So over my dead body is kind of like a be my guest, but in a different sense, a little bit different sense. We use a lot of these expressions, absolutely. So
Yes,
yeah,
language also.
yeah, yeah,
I can give you that stuff only over my dead body.
exactly, exactly.
If I don't want to do it, and I stay very strongly for not doing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, sounds great, Anatoly. Sounds great. Let's take a look at this article actually. And today we are going to be examining an issue of kind of diplomacy in the Middle East. We know whenever we talk about diplomacy in the Middle East or about the Middle East in general, it's not a terribly um, happy topic. Usually the topics are not very happy. Usually the topics are focusing on different kinds of conflicts between people or the possibility of conflict or, you know, suffering of some kind and fear and things like that. But in this example, we are actually going to be looking at diplomacy between the United States and one of its primary supporters in the Middle East, which is the country of Saudi Arabia. So recently, I believe it was in the news everywhere, really, but recently there was a negotiation between the five powerful countries, as well as Germany and Iran, right? So these six countries, these seven countries, they organized a talk to talk about Iran's nuclear program, and the negotiation was actually very positive, right? In the aftermath of that negotiation, did you find out what happened? I'll tell you what happened as a result.
Yes, I know about that.
Yeah, so Iran has now 6 months to get its act together to fix things, and the United States has been more friendly to Iran in the last 6 months than in the last 30 years, right? So this is something that is really changing the way that the Middle East works, because people are unsure what this will mean. The people in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, who have been friends with Iran who have been friends with the United States for 35, 40, 50, 60 years, they feel threatened because of America being nice to Iran now, or at least opening up to Iran, right? So out of all of the different groups of countries that are very scared about this situation, the Saudi Arabian government is one of the most vocal about their opposition, right? So they have refused to sit on the United Nations Security Council. They are making a lot of different claims and saying, this is a disaster, this is very bad, America made the wrong decision. So this article is from one of the political thinkers in the United States. His name is Fareed Zakaria. And Fareed Zakaria is saying in this article, the Saudis are angry, they're mad, who cares? Tough, the United States should not operate on helping, the United States should not operate on a policy that looks just to its friends. It also needs to look at its own benefit in negotiation and in diplomacy, right? So we'll take a look at this article, and I mean, what is your immediate reaction to something like that, Anatoly? I mean, let's say Belarus and Russia are, let's say they hate each other, okay? But then the United Kingdom or some other country comes and says, okay, we will help Belarus, and slowly we will open up Belarus to the European community. And how would you feel as a Russian? I mean, Belarusians hate your country. Let's just say as an example, right? Would you feel happy that another country was in your backyard helping your enemy?
I think I wouldn't be happy, but I can't translate this action for that example, because Belarus is a very friendly state for us, and my wife is originally from Belarus, and it is difficult to imagine, for example, for Belarus. But of course I wouldn't be happy, but it is a philosophical statement. If we used to think about something using only one way, as we just used to think, and it is also difficult to turn to another direction, and using that argument, I could say that it is possible. Just we need to just look again with a different point of view for that situation. What could be happen if we don't make this step? It could be better. It could be worse.
And I think that's actually very important that you mentioned that, Anatoly, because most of the Obama administration, for example, President Obama and his group is is one of the things that they're focusing on is, it's not really about giving anybody a way out of the situation. The situation is still a very delicate situation and could still become a very problematic situation. But they are giving diplomacy a chance, right? They are not immediately saying, oh, we are going to attack, we are going to bomb, we are going to fight, we are going to this, blah, blah, blah. Right? They're using diplomacy because, for example, in the case of Syria, Vladimir Putin, Russia came and saved Syria. I use the word save here to refer to the government, right? The Syrian government would have been destroyed if America attacked, right? So Russia came and saved the situation by saying, okay, let us pause and look at diplomacy. Maybe there is another way out that will minimize the destruction that an air attack would cause, So I think in a very similar way, John Kerry, the Secretary of State of the United States, he is doing the same kind of thing. If Iran refuses to comply with these sanctions or with this new agreement, then they have no chances, right? I mean, you give somebody 1 strike or 2 strikes or 3 strikes, right? Iran has probably gone through 5 or 6 or 7 strikes already, right? But even then they're giving them one more chance. Okay, we have one more chance. Do this and we trust you that you will do this, and if you actually do it, then we can talk again in 6 months.
Yes.
So, but let's see what is going on in the Middle East, because just this act of diplomacy, just telling Iran, okay, we will give you 6 months, has made Saudi Arabia and some of the other countries extremely angry with the United States. So let's take a look here, Anatoly. I'm going to share the article on the screen so we can follow it this way, and this is what we see. So, yeah, go ahead, Anatoly. Yeah.
And could you please copy and paste it to the chat?
Yes, absolutely. I forgot to do that. My apologies. 1 second here. Okay, let's see.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Let's see, this. All right. So we are reading about, so the guy Zakaria, Farid Zakaria, he is the person, a very famous kind of commentator. He writes a lot of articles in the United States, and he's saying the Saudis are mad. Well, tough, right? Who cares? Tough. Tough is like be my guest almost. The Saudis are mad. Tough. Why we shouldn't care that the world's most irresponsible country is displeased at the United States, right? So America's Middle East policies are failing, we are told, and the best evidence is that Saudi Arabia is furious. What does this word furious mean, Anatoly?
Angry.
Extremely angry, yeah. Very angry, right? So Dick Cheney, John McCain, and Lindsey Graham, these are all politicians in the United States. Dick Cheney is the former vice president, John McCain is a senator, Lindsey Graham is a senator, have all sounded the alarm about Riyadh's recent rejection of a seat on the UN Security Council. So Riyadh is the capital of Saudi Arabia. So, but whatever one thinks of the Obama administration's handling of the region, surely the last measure of American foreign policy should be how it is received by the House of Saud. So it's a very interesting way, this last sentence, regardless of how you think the Obama administration is doing in the Middle East, right? The last thing Americans should be worried about is how is Saudi Arabia reacting to America. Who cares? I mean, there are hundreds of other countries in the world. In English, we have the phrase, we have bigger fish to fry. We should not be concerned about some small, irresponsible situation, and we should focus on the big picture, right? So he says, if there were a prize for most irresponsible foreign policy, it would surely be awarded to Saudi Arabia, right? It is the nation most responsible for the rise of Islamic radicalism and militancy around the world. Over the past 4 decades, the kingdom's immense oil wealth has been used to underwrite the export of an extreme, intolerant, and violent version of Islam preached by its Wahhabi clerics, right? And personally, this paragraph, when I read it, I wanted to give this author a hug. Because very few politicians in the United States are open, or very few journalists are open to say the truth, right? And this is the truth right here. When for somebody who has lived in that country and who knows about that part of the world, this is exactly the situation. So what is he saying in this paragraph, Anatoly?
Mm-hmm. The author thinks that it was a very unproductive policy for the Saudi Arabia kingdom last years, and this nation is responsible for increasing of Islamic radicalism, and
so they
what
have
else?
no. That's exactly right, Anatoly. Right? They have used their money, right, for the last 40 years. This author says 4 decades, right? So they have used their money from their oil and from all of the money that they're getting. They have used that money to export this ideology, right? Export this ideology that is hindering progress in the Middle East, right? It is, when we say hindering something, Anatoly, what does that mean? If I say something is hindering something else?
And where is this word? Could you please unmark?
Oh, it's actually not in the article. I just wanted to mention it in the conversation. So I typed it in the chat window.
Yes, I see.
Yeah, if something is hindering, what does that mean? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Hindering actually means to slow down something, right? So, for example, the traffic jam was hindering you from reaching your house on time, right? So what we are saying in this article is, what he's saying in this article, and what I kind of really agree with, is he's saying that they have used this money to do this, export this radical ideology, and to a degree that has hindered the progress of the Islamic world. I mean, they are not. They are truly irresponsible, because even though they're talking about human rights and they're talking about all these other things, in the sense of Syria, for example, they are supporting the Syrian rebels. They are supporting all the fighters, and giving them money. In their own country, they don't have human rights, and in their own ideology, they have little room for debate. They don't allow free thinking as much as other societies, as much as other Islamic societies. There are many Muslim countries in the world which allow a lot more freedoms than Saudi Arabia. So this one right here, he's actually continuing. Go anywhere in the world, from Germany to Indonesia, and you'll find Islamic centers flush with Saudi money, spouting intolerance and hate, right? So he says if you go to any country in the world, you'll find these Islamic centers that are funded by the Saudi government, right? And these centers are, all they're doing is they're doing cultural programs or whatever, but they are also damaging the society, because they're talking about intolerance, and they're discussing things that are not progressive things to talk about. And it says in 2007, Stuart Levy, then a top Treasury official, so somebody who works for the U.S. Treasury, told ABC News, "If I could snap my fingers and cut off the funding from one country, it would be Saudi Arabia." He believes that if there's one country in the world that does not deserve any money from the United States, that country is Saudi Arabia, right? And when you tell the Saudi government, when confronted with the evidence, Saudi officials often claim that these funds flow from private individuals and foundations, and the government has no control over them, right? So if you ask the Saudi government, why are you supporting these Islamic centers and these radical, organizations, they will say, "Oh, we're not doing it. It's individual citizens are doing this. It's not the government, right?" But in reality, we read in December 2009, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton confirmed that Saudi Arabia remained a critical financial base for terrorism, right? And that Riyadh has taken only limited action to stop the flow of funds to the Taliban and other such groups. So even though they say that their people are doing the funding, they are not really stopping their people from doing this. You know, so it's a difficult situation. In the next paragraph they just mentioned, I'm going to go over this a little bit quickly, but they mentioned that there were only three countries in the world that recognized the old government of Afghanistan, which was, you know, which was the government led by the Taliban, and Saudi Arabia was one of those three countries, right? So they don't have a history of responsible foreign policy, right? They are a country that essentially takes what they want when they want it, and then if somebody disagrees with them, then they try to use their influence as a Middle Eastern leader and their influence as an oil country to make things difficult for other countries, right? So then on the second page, Anatoly, I just want to read this first paragraph. Saudi Arabia's objections to the Obama administration's policies towards Syria and Iran are not framed by humanitarian concerns for the people of those countries. They are rooted in a pervasive anti-Shiite ideology. So just wanted to explain this a little bit. Saudi Arabia is the world's capital of, they consider themselves to be the capital of Sunni Islam. Sunni is one of the two schools of thought. There are two schools of thought, two groups of Muslims. But actually, it's much more complicated, but there are two major groups, the Sunnis and the Shias, and the Saudis consider themselves to be the capital of the Sunni world, right? Iran is actually the capital of the Shia world, right? If you want to boil down to the very basics, of course, right? And so their opposition to Iran and their opposition to Syria's government is more Shia than Sunni. It's a difficult situation. The government of Syria is actually a third group they are a third religious group that is closer to the Shias than to the Sunnis, right? So Saudi Arabia's policies, according to this author, are designed more because of their anti-Shia ideology, right? They have certain problems with certain groups, and if Iran is powerful, then they are not as powerful, and that's the reason why they don't want the United States to be friendly with Iran. According to this author, that's the reason. So it's not a concern about Syria's people or Iran's people. The concern is much larger in terms of what is their power in the region. If their power is less, then they don't want anything to do with that, right? Which is a difficult situation. So I'll stop there, Anatoly, because the rest of the article. I highly recommend reading the article because it offers, I think, an interesting perspective into this conflict that a lot of Americans don't know about. And Fareed Zakaria, I consider him to be one of the most well-rounded, political commentators. He writes. He's a very good journalist because he focuses on these issues and he doesn't destroy the facts. He says what is factual, and he uses the evidence to prove that things are factual, right? So, I mean, I was going to ask you, Anatoly, what's your reaction? Did you know about Saudi Arabia's problems with Iran, or is this something new that you're hearing for the first time?
It is not new, this information, but in our news, I mean in Russian news on Russian TV, mostly was mentioned reaction of Israel for that situation. And I know that Prime Minister of Israel did some declared some position against the United States last steps, It is like we read about Saudi Arabia positions, Arabia's position, and what else? I also read in the newspaper The Times, or the Sunday Times. It is newspaper from the United Kingdom. I I keep reading this newspaper on my iPad. I read not long time ago article about one private investor from Saudi Arabia who helped to rebels in the Syria, who did some financial donations for them, and I understood how it was made. I mean, it was private investor, and he did donation after he received some proofs that his donation works perfectly. I mean, in that case, they did photos during executives during when they killed people, for example, soldiers from Syrian army, and only they gave these investors proofs, evidence, and show it what they did for his money. He continued support this group of rebels. And yes, but also I know a little, not so much about Iran. I don't tend to be very naive about Iran's policy. I also a little afraid of intentions of Iranian authority to produce a nuclear bomb, nuclear weapon, and I care also about it. But I think it is necessary. Iran now is not so close for all the world country, like for example the North Korea, and there is a chance to come back this country for all international society, and I welcome that chance which gave to Iran a few countries, the United States, Russia, and Germany, and also other countries. And I know that they didn't make serious steps there. They just postponed sanctions, for example, and producing new stuff for nuclear weapons. That's all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And right now, I think you did a great job summarizing the ideas. You know, and it's true because all we are saying, all Fareed Zakaria is saying, and a lot of the people in the United States, all they're saying is, we just want to give diplomacy a chance, right? We are not saying we are friendly with them, we love them, whatever. No, many people are still suspicious, rightfully so, right? I'm suspicious. Right? I mean, it's not a country that has a history. Iran is not a country that has a history of telling the truth. You know, they also, like Saudi Arabia, have a very irresponsible foreign policy, right? But in the case of in the case of Saudi Arabia, as we see in this article, they just love to make noise whenever anything happens that they don't like, right?
Mhm.
Instead of being
Mhm.
a responsible country, okay, this country is my neighbor, Iran is my neighbor. I hate Iran, but at least it's my neighbor, right?
Mhm.
I should see what happens. If nothing happens and the situation gets worse, then I'll have even more evidence to say, okay, listen, you really can't trust Iran, right?
Mhm.
But they
Mhm.
don't. Saudis don't think like that. I think they are thinking, oh no, oh my God. It's like when if you are talking to two children and you give a you give a candy to one of them and the other one doesn't have a candy, he starts to cry and yell and
Mhm.
scream. You know,
Mhm.
it's exactly like that. It's exactly
Mhm.
like that. They love making noise and they don't realize their own you know that this is very funny for the rest of the world. I mean, to have a person like Farid Zakaria, who is very, very popular in the United States, right? To have a person
Mhm.
like him write an article with a title that says, "Who cares about Saudi Arabia?"
Mhm.
That's isn't that embarrassing for a country? I mean,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
interesting in that sense. But Anatoly, it was a great class. I really appreciated you coming and joining. Sometimes I think this early morning class in the United States at least is a little unpopular. So I'm glad you came very much. Did you have any questions? We looked at imperative, we looked at diplomacy overseas, and all of these topics. Did you have any questions about any of that?
No, no questions. I also recognized some new for me, and when we read article,
Yes,
usually,
yes.
yes, I keep in my mind new vocabulary. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
you're very welcome, Anatoly. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you very
Uh,
much.
yep.
Goodbye,
Take care,
goodbye.
Anatoly. Bye bye.
Hello.
Hey, Anatoly, how's it going?
Hello, Farhan. I'm fine. Thank you.
Good
How
to
are
see you
you?
again. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Fantastic. How's the weather down there?
Oh, today is the first day when snow fall, uh, fa fall,
When snow fell, right?
felt. Yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. That's right.
Yeah. So that's great. So it's now it's a new day for people in Moscow. I think people are going to be excited about the winter, right?
Yes, yes. Winter. is coming.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. There's a lot going on here. Also, people in the United States are actually preparing for a big storm that's coming later this week. This is a holiday week for people in the United States. So there are a lot of people who are preparing to travel, either go home to see their family, or everybody is coming to their home. Uh, and travel delays are causing major problems. I think there will be a large snowstorm tomorrow. Uh, Today is Wednesday. Tomorrow is kind of the day of Thanksgiving. So tomorrow is the main day of, I guess, eating food and being with family. And there are reports that there's going to be a lot of snow in the eastern part of the country. So New York, Washington, D.C. is going to have rain, but the northeast of the country is going to see a lot of snow. So people are not sure what they're going to do yet.
Yes, yes, I know that tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, exactly. So it's a big holiday time. It's actually probably the most busy holiday season of the entire year, you know.
Mm.
And people are, people work um, pretty pretty hard to, wait for this holiday. They wait the entire year. They save up a lot of money when they are traveling, and it's a shame that so many people will probably be stuck on a flight or stuck in an airport, tomorrow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I see.
Do you guys have any holidays like that, Anatoly? Maybe in Russia when everybody travels and sees each other?
Usually, I think the most common holiday for meeting it is New Year.
New Year's.
Yes, New Year. And for me also, I live in Moscow, but my parents and parents of my wife lives in city Saratov. It is on the